Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I am Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network, and he has had two dominant victories to talk about on that post-game show the last couple of weeks. The Cowboys drub the Jets in week 2, 30-10 at AT&T Stadium. Brian, I know you and I were kicking around potential scores and things like that. I don't think either of us had a 20-point victory. You were a little more high-scoring than me, I know. But the Cowboys come out of this one, another really impressive day for the defense. The offense started strong, maybe spun their wheels a little bit in the second half, but we'll dive into all of this. Your macro takeaway, your big thing. What's your one big takeaway coming out of this game, Brian?
I was really surprised at the arrogance to which the Jets played that football game defensively. I feel like that they knew they were in some trouble offensively. Everybody that we had a chance to visit with, Bobby, you mentioned you're one of the great guests that we have on the Cowboys pregame show. We had Bob Wischusen, who does the Jets radio broadcast. A very accomplished media member, good eye, been around a lot of good football, in his day. So I got the detection there was a little bit of apprehension by him for the offensive side of the ball for the Jets. Talking to Tracy Wolfson from CBS, she was talking about Jet confidence, but, there's things that they're going to have to do to have success. I don't think we overrated the Jet defense at all. I think they have outstanding players. I also think the Dallas Cowboys have some outstanding players. Yep. But I mentioned the arrogance in which the Jets played defense, and it's something that I think that they're going to learn from and probably be better for it in the future. And that's that where you keep your corners on the same side of the field. The same side, a right corner and a left corner. And you don't show the flexibility to be able to travel with. And I think it's something that Sauce Gardner, the very talented corner from the Jets, came out and basically said, hey, let me travel. And there's some schemes that I know under the previous regime for the Cowboys defensively, not Mike Nolan, but what we saw back in the day was with Rod Marinelli he was not really willing to always travel with guys, and that's because they always fear that if you travel with, it'll change everybody else's responsibility in the defense. So there's some positives, there's some negatives according to defensive coordinators. But the arrogance in which the Jets played, they felt like that their pass rush was probably good enough to get pressure. It didn't. They probably felt like that they could cover on the back end playing mostly zone. It didn't work. So there was some real arrogance there. The fact that Mike McCarthy in the pregame with Brad Sham, well, I take that back. Post-game, when we heard Coach talk, he mentioned that they were concerned about, with no Cooks in the game for the Cowboys, how would the Jets play? Would they try and bracket? Would they cover, would double cover? Would they try and take CeeDee Lamb out of the game? And they really didn't. And Mike McCarthy and his staff give them a lot of credit. I know I'm one of those guys that people that listen to us say, well, Broaddus, you don't like McCarthy. No, it's not that I don't like Mike McCarthy. I'm just, I'm happy things are working out for him. I really am. I want to see the Cowboys win football games. I want to see him move the ball. I want to see him score points. So sure. But I'm going to give Mike McCarthy and his staff some credit here. They kept moving CeeDee Lamb around, and the Jets really didn't have an answer for that. And once that the Cowboys figured out that there was not going to be a traveler, they're not going to bracket, they're not going to play man coverage, then they went to work with CeeDee Lamb throwing the football. It didn't turn into, even though Jalen Tolbert played well in his first big stage opportunity, and I say first because last year was an absolute disaster for him. So I'm trying to saying this to me is really the first time that we've seen him play on this big stage like this. I think he did very well. Michael Gallup, they've got to figure out ways to get Michael Gallup going. But like I say, the Jets' arrogance of just allowing CeeDee Lamb to wreck shop on them is something that they're going to have to look at for their football team and in going into the future. Because if you're going to just continue now to play the way they did, you better make sure that pass rush gets home if that's what you're going to do. And the Cowboys did a great job of neutralizing that.
Yeah, I think that, when you mentioned there that, they played it arrogantly in terms of they thought their front four would be enough to get home with the pass rush. They played a lot of zone, thought that'd be enough in the back end, and it wasn't. I do think that, at least for me, I don't know about you, Brian, I thought their front four was going to be enough to get home on the pass rush. Now, I wouldn't have sat in zone all day and not moved but I thought their front four was good enough to potentially take advantage of the Cowboys offensive line. Kudos to the Cowboys offensive line doing what they did. And they continue to get the ball out quickly. That's going to neutralize some of the pass rush ability. So I thought that was a good job by the Cowboys, but this is something that I think specifically we had talked about too, was the idea of the one area where you've probably really got an advantage over this really good Jets defense is because they don't move guys, you could move CeeDee around and you could find the matchup and to exploit it. And that's what the Cowboys did, and to a lot of success. This is something that when you look in the first half, if you take CeeDee Lamb's plays out of it, Brian, if you take any time where CeeDee Lamb was targeted, the Cowboys ran 36 plays at 3 yards a pop.
Yeah.
And so, this was a CeeDee Lamb carried offense, that connection between Dak and CeeDee in the first half, and really kind of put them on good footing to do what they would do the rest of the game. But this, again, obviously was a game about the defense and just how dominant this Cowboys defense is. And it was right out of the gate. It was DeMarcus Lawrence making a play in the backfield on the first carry of the game. It was Micah Parsons. I don't know that I've seen Micah get in the backfield. I don't know if I've ever seen a player get in the backfield as quickly as Micah did there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of metrics that were measured that it was the quickest get off time, or that they'd been able to measure this year. But if I could, let me just finish up with the offense, Bobby. And your point is well taken about the others. Mm-hmm. The thing that I want to say about this Cowboys offensive line is that they really do look out for each other. And I mean look out for each other the way that Tyler Biadasz is able to help Udoka on a play, or he's able to kind of help when he needs to a Zach Martin. They do a good job of passing stunts inside. They do a good job of being in position. They look very assignment sound. There was a couple of times in the red zone where Tyron Smith got a holding penalty and then he whiffed on a block on that lost him 2 yards. But overall, though, the way that the inside three have played these 2 games for the Cowboys, and Zach Martin is a Hall of Fame player. Tyler Biadasz isn't a Hall of Fame player, and neither is Udoka. But they have done a really good job, and we mentioned Tyron Smith has turned back the clock. 1 pressure, 41 snaps of opportunity for pass block and stuff. Terrence Steele got rocked one time, but it's going to happen to him in these games. But overall, those 5 guys have done a really nice job, and I really believed that Udoka was going to be a liability. But what they figured out, that if Udoka is in like that phone booth of playing guard, and the defender is willing to rush him just directly up the field and try and just run over him, that defender's not going to get to Dak Prescott. And they did a good job. They did a good job of not turning this into a game where both defensive lines were just wrecking shop again. There's that phrase again, on each other. The Cowboys clearly took advantage of the Jets' offensive line, and the Jets could not take advantage of anything with the Dallas offensive line.
Yeah, and somebody you mentioned there, the guys on the interior, Udoka not being a Hall of Fame player, Tyler Biadasz not being a Hall of Fame player, who's also not a Hall of Fame player, at least not yet. I guess we can't claim anything yet with the guy, but TJ Bass, who had to come in and play the entire second half, and I thought played well. There were several reps where I thought he handled Quinnen Williams really well. And I was talking to somebody before the game the other day, and I just said something, watching down on the field. I'd noticed Bass was down there, and I just had made a comment about, Bass, he's kind of the stuff we talked about. I said, Bass, he's a gamer. And, they were saying like, that's a powerful guy. That's a strong guy. He can move some people.
See, this is where, again, I'll give Mike McCarthy some credit. Hey, I'll admit when I'm wrong about things, but this is where I'll give Mike some credit. By not playing his starters, and okay, there was also a Zach Martin holdout, so that kind of made you have to do some unorthodox things. But by not playing his starters, you got 3 games of TJ Bass playing. You got 3 games of Awesome Richards playing. You got games of these guys lining up and playing a lot of snaps, playing the whole game. That's what you got. And so it makes it a little bit easier. It's not a shell shock situation when TJ Bass's number's called and he has to go in there and play. There's been times where he's had to work against the 1s and 2s in Jacksonville, the 1s and 2s of Seattle Seahawks, 1s and 2s of the Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
I have their pennant somewhere here. It's over on the other side.
I see it. I see it's over your shoulder there.
Over my shoulder, the Oakland Raider pennant. Yeah. But see, that's what I'm saying. That's by playing those kids, they get experience. I know it's preseason football, but it's experience. It's not too much for them. So good for them with the offensive line. Good for Mike Solari so far through 2 weeks. This group has pulled some things together, and they're going to have to figure some things out in the red zone, but they will.
Yeah, and when we talk about it, who did you think? Because it was pretty much split one half to the other. Who did you think played better in this game, Edoga or Bass? Because Edoga's dealing with the elbow issue. He's apparently going to be limited in practice on Wednesday. We'll see about his status. It may be that Bass has to go again. But did you think one guy played better than the other?
I kind of felt like Edoga was pretty good in this game. I really did. I mean, when you look at initially the drives that they were able to have and the way they're able to sustain some things, I kind of felt like that he was a little bit better. But that's, and I was a guy that was screaming for TJ Bass to play in the first place. But just because I didn't see Edoga playing guard, I saw him playing tackle and I saw him not being very good. And I'm thinking, man, I hope my eyes are deceiving me here. But when you put him in a situation where there's not a lot of space, I was worried about the quickness of Quinnen Williams, honestly, and I was really worried about Quentin Jefferson, the quickness that those guys were going to play with. Those guys inside handled all that. They really did.
Yeah. Now there were a couple times I don't know. It didn't end up hurting them. There were a few times where I felt like, I think it was Williams got him a couple times. It was Jefferson 1 or 2 times. Biotish kind of got rocked, kind of got driven.
He's going to get rocked,
times, which happens.
It happens to him. Yeah,
he fights. That's the biggest thing is that Biotish is going to fight. But you are going to see that'll pop every now and then. You'll see it like, he's kind of getting bunny hopped backwards a little bit, but he held his own, and they're getting the ball out quick. That's being neutralized a little bit now. I want to circle back to something you had just mentioned a few minutes ago about how they didn't take CeeDee Lamb away. What happens when one of these defenses in the coming week says, we are not going to let CeeDee Lamb beat us? What does this offense look like, do you think?
Well, without Brandon Cooks, it can look pretty pedestrian, if you want to use a word. Bobby, you just said take away all the stuff that he did, and it was a team that averaged 3. I think that when I was walking out of the press box to go to do maybe this is a post-game show, you said, hey, the Jets are outgaining the Cowboys right now. Or you had some kind of
the
comment.
Jets were averaging more yards per play than the Cowboys. The Jets finished the game averaging more yards per play than the Cowboys.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be what it really needs. But to me, first take him away. Now, there's teams that have taken it. San Francisco took him away last year. When you look at what once Pollard got hurt. Mm-hmm. Yeah, San Francisco, they took him away. I just can't believe that the Jets. And you're going to get some teams like Arizona, New England coming up. Bill Belichick's going to watch that tape from yesterday and go, because he's familiar with the Jets. He knows what it's like to play the Jets. He understands them.
Yeah.
So he's like thinking, well, like, what the hell are they? What are they thinking? Why would you let him do that? You got to figure out ways to try and take him out of the game. And there's teams that will. But the advantage is if you have guys like Cooks and I say Cooks, but the tight ends, I think the tight ends played well enough yesterday. I think they rebounded after a bad day of catching the ball, in week 1. But hey, I'm not saying 4 targets to Tolbert, 3 catches. That's building. That's building. There is something that has to be done for Michael Gallup, though. There's got to be something. If you're going to create stuff for Deuce Vaughn in the second series of the game, my God, figure out a way. And I'm not talking about maybe forcing it, but find a way to kind of get Gallup going in one of these games. My guy, he goes across the middle, and it's like it looks like a piñata, getting a hit, going and getting the ball. The catch he made, the one catch he made, there needs to be more going towards Michael. I'm not just talking about the smokes and the things, those screens and things. Needs to find a way to kind of get him going because you're going to need him in this game. In one of these games that you're talking about, you're going to need Michael Gallup to have one of those, 6 catches, 93-yard games with a touchdown. You're going to need him to have one of those.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I want to circle back on 2 things here that we.
But how does it look? How does it look? Not good. It won't look. It's not going to be good. That's what I'm saying. But it's got to be Cooks, and it's got to be Gallup, and it's got to be Tolbert, and these tight ends. Somebody else has got to make plays.
I want to touch on a couple things there with Gallup and Tolbert. First, I want to remind everybody that you are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian. So let's start with Gallup, since that's what you had left off with.
I feel bad for the kid. I really do.
I do too. But here's the thing: is that when you look at over his last 5 games, if you include the playoffs, Gallup's been targeted 19 times in the last 5 games. He has 8 catches. It's for 68 yards. He's not been able to perform since he came back from that ACL the same way that he used to. And you remember there were a couple games last year where it was like, well, let's get Michael going. Let's feed Michael the ball. Same sort of thing coming out of halftime against the Giants. And I know we were just talking about it. Is it at all concerning that we're 17 games into his
Yes,
return?
I'll say yes right now. Whatever question you're about to ask me, yes. Yeah, and because you're going to ask me, is it concerning that Michael Gallup is not looking like Michael Gallup before the knee injury?
Specifically that Gallup has never been a guy that you needed to get going. Like, he just would get going.
He makes incredible he can make some incredible catches. He is one of those guys, when you're not doing really well on offense, and maybe he has 2 catches, 3 catches, whatever, but one of his catches completely gets the offense going. Gets the offense going.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's always gotten the offense going. It's never been the offense having to get him going, which is what's a little concerning about the last year.
I'm trying to figure something out, Bobby.
Well, here's my question for you. Have we reached a point now with this new system, which is get the ball out quick, screens and stuff?
Yep.
Gallup's always been route 7, 8, 9. Is Gallup no longer a scheme fit here?
That's what I'm fearful of now, Bobby. That's what I'm fearful of. That's what I'm. Is he a round piece in the square hole? That's what I wonder. But he's got toughness to run the slants and things like that. You can hit him on the outs, those routes like that where he could toe tap. I mean, he's one of the best long short play. I mean, I say long body, but when he plays, he could play like a really small guy. He could get feet down. He can contort. He does a lot of things. This is me, Bobby. I'm begging because I want to see him be successful.
Yeah.
But to your point, it might not be the right fit. I want him to do well because I've seen how hard he works. I've seen him how he's gone through some off the field things. He's a guy that always plays with a smile. He just wants to win. But deep down inside, he sees CeeDee Lamb have 11 catches.
Yeah.
He sees that. He sees Tolbert have 3 catches or 4 catches, and he sees that, and he's like, okay, he just wants to contribute.
Yeah.
He wants to contribute. He doesn't want to be a guy that they gave him a nice little contract and he's not living up to the contract because he's probably feeling like he's not being productive enough. And okay, fine, they'll find a way to get rid of me. He even said it when we were interviewing him. I think I brought it a couple different times. He's like, yeah, that 1-8, this is in training camp. Well, that 1-8's making some plays. He's coming from a job. And he says it with a smile, but deep down inside, he's probably thinking, I need to do something here. I need to have a 6-catch, 92-yard day to kind of get myself going again.
Get in his rhythm. It's interesting. Now I'm going to do something very visual here, so apologies to the listeners. But as you'll see here, Brian, as best I can, that's the little throw chart for Dak.
Throw charts, yeah.
That does not look like a lot of Michael Gallup routes that are like. There's not a lot of routes there that you got one deep ball way up there. Who was it thrown to? It was thrown to Jalen Tolbert. It wasn't thrown to Michael Gallup yesterday.
Man, the last guy I would throw that 9 route to would be Tolbert. I've seen him
now, probably.
I've seen him at South Alabama. No, I've seen him at South Alabama, but it just felt like that he was so covered on the play. There wasn't that separation or,
That's what I mentioned. That was one of the other things I wanted to circle back on was the Tolbert angle. I thought it was really fascinating that the targets Tolbert got yesterday were kind of in big moments. Like they were third down throws. And what did you think overall about how he played? I mean, he didn't do anything dynamic, but what did you think about how he played?
In the pregame, I told Eric Chiafalo on 105.3 The Fan, we do the pregame postgame show, and we talk about that a lot here. And I told Eric, I said, listen, this is the game. Remember week 2 last year against Cincinnati? When it was kind of bleak at wide receiver and things weren't really going great. Who in week 2 of Cincinnati had 5 targets, 5 catches, first down after first down after first down in that game?
Noah Brown.
I said somebody has got to be the Noah Brown in this game. And I said Jalen Tolbert. Here we go. Jalen Tolbert, 5 targets, 4 first downs. Something like that. I was just thinking out loud. I was like, and I didn't put that on Gallup. I put it on a guy because I knew that Tolbert would be the guy that was going to get, he was going to be the third receiver in the offensive scheme. So if he got 4 targets, 3 catches, 3 first downs or whatever, that's what you needed right there. And somebody needed to have a Noah Brown game. And Noah Brown won that game for you last year with the plays.
Oh yeah, those were big catches, and I think
catches.
The majority of them were third downs. They were third down conversions.
4th down catch,
a touchdown.
Yeah, he had. I mean, it was crazy the type of game that Noah Brown had against Cincinnati in week 2. But I was kind of thinking the same thing. The Jets, AFC opponent, somebody needs to step up, and I think Tolbert could build on that. Now, I hope that what will probably happen is you'll get Cooks back. You'll turn in. Now, people will say this, and they were asking me on the post-game show on Twitter and stuff.
Yep. And
thanks to folks that listen to the post-game too and call in, text, and all that stuff. But people were asking me, is there a possibility that we see Tolbert be the third receiver even when Cooks is back? There's a lot of people because there are people already kind of throwing dirt. They're already throwing dirt on Michael Gallup, And me personally, I don't want to see it. I can understand if Tolbert's a better player for the scheme fit. I could totally understand that.
Yeah, he probably runs right now. He probably runs those routes more the way that the Cowboys would
they're
look
supposed
for
to be
those,
run. Yeah,
because that's
you're not wrong.
Gallup's never been the the stop route, the slant guy. Yeah. Gallup's always been the post, the corner, running the verticals, because one of his greatest traits is just the ability to track the deep ball, the ability to, have the sideline awareness. He's really good at that. And it may be that, these are not the type of shots that they're going to take in this offense. Now, that's one of the other things I want to talk about before we'll wrap up one more thing on the offense, then we'll do some quick defensive talk before we get to the mailbag. But when you look at the offense going 2 for 6 in the red zone, there's clearly still a lot of room to grow here for this offense. The fact that these route combinations are quick, short, get the ball out, do you think that this is going to be an extended issue? that, look, once the field tightens up, shortens up, and you're playing nose to nose, these designs aren't going to cut it, and that there's going to have to be some sort of, because I feel like a lot of the efficiently getting down the field, it's because you've got space to make things happen. As the field tightens, those concepts need to change.
Yeah, but what I saw was Tyron Smith missed 2 blocks. I saw Hendershot on a jet sweep. If he just plants his right foot and dives for the line, he's going to score. Instead,
it's almost like he's not a running back.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. It's creativity. It's things they're trying. If you hand that ball to Turpin, that's probably a touchdown because he's what happens is Hunter Lipke and again the state of North Dakota. Please, I love your Hunter Lipke. I do. I'm just saying though, there's things that he's learning on the way. He's learning about blocking. He's learning how difficult it could be. He's playing on the edge. He's getting ragdolled a little bit. He really didn't help Hendershot all that much with the way Hendershot read the block. It didn't give him confidence to go outside. It didn't give him confidence to go inside. That's on Hendershot. Creativity play, another creativity play. You're going to put Tolbert as a tight slot, almost next to Terrence Steele, like he's a wing. So you put him there with some other bodies. So you're trying to lose a receiver in the body area of the box. So Dak, they're going to roll this thing to the right. They're going to try and delay a little bit with Tolbert and then run him up and then run him to the left side. And then they're going to throw the ball back. Well, what's happening? It's like there's 3 jet defenders standing on that side of the field. Dak then has to, Dak gets sacked over there, It's one of those plays where they tried to be a little creative with the jet sweep. They tried to be a little creative with the throwback. The Hendershot the Schoonmaker touchdown was a nice play. Was a good mesh, getting him across kind of a little bit right to left, get a little bit mesh, run their guys through traffic, throw him the football, touchdown. They missed a shot. To Ferguson over the top. Ferguson beats 3 guys getting off the line. Next thing you know, he's in the corner. Dak's just got to lay that ball in there. That was a missed opportunity right there. So I'm telling you a bunch of things that are happening. The whole thing, they scored a touchdown on a 6-yard running play. Again, holding on the backside by Tyron Smith. There's things that hurt this offense. There's a side of me, though, that also believes, I said this on the postgame show, and I'll say it again right now. There's a side of me that Mike McCarthy says, I'm going to run the ball here, I'm going to run the ball here, I'm going to run the ball here, trying to toughen up his team. And we're now in the era of not having Ezekiel Elliott anymore. We're done with Ezekiel Elliott. We'll see him in a couple of weeks. But we don't have that guy that's going to pound the ball, and next thing you know, it's a 4th and 1 and you go for it and you score. That we don't have that guy. We don't. So I think McCarthy ran the ball with Pollard a little bit to try and maybe toughen his guys up. That, hey, you're going to have to block a little bit better up front, maybe to get this guy to and through the hole.
I could see that. I could see him trying to do that because they ran their head a little bit at times in this game. Pollard carried the ball 25 times. He was under 3 yards of carry. So I could totally see that, understand that. Really quickly on the defense, just before we get to the mailbag, because there's how much more can you say about them than we've already said? I guess here's the thing is that when you watch this now, this is 2 weeks in a row. They've done a good job of, after the first drive against the Giants, snuffing out the run. They did a good job stopping the run yesterday. I thought Damone Clark played better. I thought their run fits in general were a little better. Is the only weakness on this team right now, Brian, the fact that they have a tendency to get up the field so fast that they create the running lanes for the quarterbacks? Is that really the only weakness on the defense at this point?
I think that if you ask me what the potential problems could be, yes. They do a tremendous job of getting up the field. They also do a tremendous job with the pressure, but they're not the most disciplined when it comes to, okay, you have to stay in your lane and rush. When there's twist games and stuff, I completely understand it. But if you're going to have Micah and you're going to have Tank and you're going to have Osa, all 3 of those guys can't end up on one side of the defense when they're rushing, and then all of a sudden somebody's getting blocked on the other side. They can't have that happen, because what happens is they're playing coverage. Maybe they're playing man coverage behind that, and they don't have somebody there accounting for the quarterback. They're trying to match everybody up in the secondary. So yes, if they're the one weakness that this team has is they're so anxious to get up the field, but the lane integrity falls apart at times. And it's just, but when it's a beautiful way, man, when they rush, they get up the field. It's a problem. You could see it. You could see the stress level in the quarterback. You could see the stress level of the offensive line and having to deal with it. You could see the stress level of the backs having to protect for it. It goes up. But they've got to play with a little bit more discipline when it comes to the paths that they take. Because there's going to be some quarterbacks down the line that are going to hurt you running the football, mainly that guy in Philadelphia.
You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for the Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. First question here from Mario. After watching this team for 2 weeks, where on the schedule can you see their first loss occurring? I think they win these next two.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Bill Belichick defends them. Could it be this? I hate the Arizona Cardinals. The Cowboys have played in Arizona, I think, 4 times here. In the last 4 years, they've won one of those games. Arizona could be a house of horrors too, especially a team that let it fall apart. Folks, I'm not sitting there. Bobby and I don't think you're the same way, Bobby. I'm not trying to oversell anybody. If I don't think anybody's any good, I'll tell you they're not any good. And I'm gonna sit down and watch the Arizona Cardinals play, and they might not be any good. They really might not be any good. But the problem you run into is if you have moments like where you look beautiful on a drive going down the field, and then the second series you go 3 and out, you're kind of like, okay, well, why did that happen? Well, was it the defense? Was it self-inflicted? But I worry about all NFL games. I just do. I just worry about, you're riding a good momentum right now. Your defense is playing well. You're getting guys back. You're going to have some healthy players. I'm scared of playing at all these places until I actually could sit down and watch the Cardinals and say, okay, they're a bad football team. But they let the Giants off the hook. They were up yesterday. They had a chance to win a game. They had a chance to put the Giants out and make everybody feel bad about them being 0-2. Yeah. The Commanders, how about them coming back in Denver? I wouldn't have said that. I don't think they were, there's all these games are that way. Through 2 weeks, the only loss in the NFC East is when an NFC East team was playing each other. Yeah. Eagles are 2-0, Cowboys 2-0, right.
Washington 2-0, and then the Giants have just one loss, and it was to Dallas.
See, the problem I have, Dallas could lose to now. Dallas has won 9 straight games at home. That's pretty damn good. I just worry about Belichick coming up with some. Yeah, how about that blocked field goal they had yesterday? They run the guy down the line and boom. Think about that. Think about if you did that for the end of a game to try and win a game. It's like you have to get a block to win the game, and they throw that at you and they block it. That's the kind of crap that you have, when you play New England. The last time they played New England, what was it, an overtime throw? Was it?
Yeah.
Overtime to CeeDee Lamb?
That was when Dak hurt the calf.
Yeah. Like the last play of the game. The last play of the game. Yeah, basically hurt the calf. So I don't think where the Cowboys could lose, they could lose at Arizona. They could lose at New England. You could lose to anybody. You can lose to anybody in this league.
I'll say it this way. I would not wrestle with who to pick. I'm going to pick them the next 2 weeks. I would not wrestle with who to pick until week 5 against San Francisco. I think
they've yet to prove they could beat San Francisco.
San Francisco is, and we talked about it a little bit on Saturday's episode. San Francisco is very clearly, I don't want to say in their head, but they're present of mind for this football team a lot. They know, and I kind of love it, Brian. It feels like a little bit of heyday, a little. I mean, it's not quite the same. Obviously, you're talking about two, teams loaded with Hall of Famers in the 90s. But I like this it's very familiar, like just a callback to an era of a really great rivalry. And this is one that's been a little one-sided lately, but I like that the two of the three really strong powers, it feels like, in the NFC right now are classic rivals. And I think that's a cool thing for us right now, is that I do love that this is something that matters to the Cowboys.
Somebody asked me a question last night on in post game, and Zach and I were talking about it, Zach Wolchuk, and we were talking about who is the bullies. And I think San Francisco's a bully. I think San Francisco's a bully team. They go to Pittsburgh and beat up on, and someone says, well, is Dallas not a bully? Dallas is getting there, but you know what? Dallas has got to go to San Francisco and win that football game. You have to go to you can't go to San Francisco and lose and get embarrassed or whatever, and then expect to we'll just show up in January and it will be fine. I know teams change along the way, but you got to find a way to get that monkey off your back right now. You've got to go in there and be a bully and beat San Francisco, but you got to find a way to beat Arizona and beat New England to make that game have a lot of meaning for it.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. That one, I mean, honestly, there's an argument to be made that Dallas-San Francisco game is going to be one of the, at least heading into it, we don't know how it'll play out, but that has a potential to be a game of the year type of thing for the regular season, because these are two. But San Francisco right now, I think until they prove they can beat San Francisco, and they've been in these games, they've been capable of winning them. But right now, San Francisco is definitely has I think a psychological advantage over this football team. Is that Dallas could even feel like they're more talented than San Francisco right now. San Francisco's still got a psychological advantage, and I think that's huge. They got to feel like they can beat this team in a big moment. And on the road, prime time, you're 4-0.
Yes.
That'll be a big game if they're able to get there like that.
Huge game, yeah.
All right, next question here from Kyle. Is there any buyer's remorse on Donovan Wilson? It seems like Bell and Thomas are filling in more than adequately for him. I'll say this, and I know we've mentioned it before. Dan Quinn, when we talked to him in Oxnard, had said that Donovan Wilson was one of the guys that he points to as telling new players how to play the game of football. Right. Like, hey, this follow his cues for physicality and how to handle yourself. This is our guy here. I don't think there's any buyer's remorse. I think they just look at it as an embarrassment of riches. And they think, well, we can play this guy in the box. The way Dan Quinn's mind works, I think, is when he has a lot of players, he doesn't, at a certain position, he doesn't think, well, I got to play one here, one to play. He gets excited about, how can I use this person in a different way to get them on the field? And the outcome is that. I think Marquise Bell had a really good game, I thought, yesterday.
He tackles so well. He's around the ball. He's got a nose for the ball. He plays 7 plays. He has 3 tackles. He just knows how to get to the football. Buyer's remorse? No, not at all. You know why? Because Donovan Wilson is going to win you a football game. You know that bully game that we were talking about in Santa Clara? That could be a game where Donovan Wilson lights somebody up and the ball comes flying out and Dallas gets it and the game's over. Yep. That's where Donovan Wilson is going to come in. No, buyer's remorse on him? Absolutely not. That kid's is tough. And if Dan Quinn is saying that, hey, wait a minute, I need this guy, I'm buying. I'm totally buying what he's saying.
Is this, by the way, Brad Sham brought this up when we talked to him on 105 Through the Fan on Monday morning, and I didn't push him on it because he was in the middle of an answer and moved on. But he said he felt like this was the best safety group they've had as a collection since the 70s safeties that the Cowboys had.
That's Waters and Harris.
Yeah, so I personally would go back more to
Washington maybe in the.
I'd say 93 because that was Thomas Everett, Darren Woodson, James Washington. 94 was Brock Marion, Darren Woodson.
But the thing about it was the one guy these guys right here,
they're deep.
I could say the guys that they have now could have probably played on those teams in the 1990s. Yeah. You'd have found a spot for Wanye Thomas. You would have found a spot for Bell. You just found a spot for Wilson.
I'll tell you who would have stuck on those 90s teams, who Jimmy would have loved, was Curse.
Yeah.
Curse would have been in that defense.
Yeah, long run. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that kind of
swagger,
tough,
leader. He would have loved him.
No question. He would have loved him. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I thought it was interesting though. When I thought about it, I recoiled a little bit, but then I was like, man, I think I do got to go at least back 30 years.
Cliff Harris back in the 70s. Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters were outstanding. I grew up watching them play. Toughness. That was when you could be a safety and go head hunting a little bit. That was a time when you had the Jack Tatums in Oakland and then later Ronnie Lott's, when he moved from corner to safety in San Francisco, Mel Blount in Pittsburgh, with those guys. I mean, they had some guys that would flat knock you out. And the Cowboys have got I will say this though, I was a little disappointed, and I've been critical of Hooker, and this is not one of those I told you so moments. This is not the case at all, because his interception was a really good play.
He covered some ground.
He saved Diggs. He surely saved Diggs. I felt like though if in fact there wasn't many more air on the ball, that maybe Wilson catches that ball. But the fact that there was air under it, I really think it helped Hooker. But on the slant, there's a couple of things that happened. It was Leighton Vander Esch opened to his right, and the ball went back to his left. And to me, I was just kind of wondering, I wonder what drew his attention to where he opened and when he was on his drop, where he opened to right. Maybe he was thinking strength of the formation and that. But, man, to me, the one guy that I feel like was going to get the ball at any time would be Wilson. I'd probably open to his side. It might have been something scheme-related but the ball went right behind him. But Hooker's got a tackle, though, too. The ball gets inside Gilmore. Gilmore's chasing. Hooker's there. He's just got to wrap up in space. Come up, wrap up in space, and it's a nice gain. It's not a 68-yard backbreaker play, because the Cowboys are in a situation where, okay, now the game's kind of tight again. Dak almost throws the pick six. I say almost. We talked about it. Hey, what's the one thing you can't do? You can't hesitate with these guys. You got to be committed. You got to get the ball out. You got to do all that. Yep. That was a big play. That 68-yard touchdown was at the time a big play in that game. So Malik Hooker just got to wrap up in that chance and get Wilson on the ground there. Keep it to a minimal gain if you can.
Yeah, it's wild. That happened midway through the second quarter. That was the first conversion, and it came as a touchdown, but that was the first conversion the defense had given up all game, because the only other first down they had gotten was that fake punt on fourth down when the defense wasn't even on the field. All right, Brian, last question here for you. This one from Copper Brewer. Which is more impressive, the D-line pressure, the pass defense, or the pick/rub routes that they've been running on offense? Which are you more impressed with?
All right, say one more time on me, please. Say one more time.
So which are you more impressed with right now? The defensive line pressure, the pass defense, the secondary, I assume, or the pick/rub routes on offense?
I think it's the pass rush. I think it's a pass. They've been
They're dominant.
They're relentless. They're absolutely relentless rushing the passer. If you had to power rank them, I think then the rub routes and what we've seen from the offense, the ability to create space would be second, and then give me the coverage on the back end. I know Gilmore had the play where he gave it up yesterday. We just talked about that. But Gilmore is such a big upgrade from what they've played with in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
he's a big upgrade. He just is.
We mentioned the safeties. When was the last time you think the Cowboys had three corners this capable? Diggs, Bland, and Gilmore. Gosh
darn, Jordan Lewis got on the field yesterday on third down and got 10 snaps or how much he played. They try and throw the ball. They try and drag a receiver across. They get pressured. The ball, Wilson's having to throw it inside. Jordan Lewis undercuts the route, makes the ball go wide, makes the throw go wide. So, yeah, I mean, throw him in there too. You talk about four guys that can cover.
Is this the best? I think it was 2008. 2008 was the year where they had Terrence Newman, Anthony Henry, Mike Jenkins, and Orlando Scandrick. I think that was probably the last time their corner group was that strong. And even then, it was two young guys who were still unproven.
Yeah. And an old man in Terrence Newman.
Well, yeah, he was drafted as an old man.
He was drafted as an old man, yeah.
He would have been, I mean, even then, it would have been.
People were like, it was so funny, real quick story on that. People
he
were
played
like,
for 20 years.
That's what I'm saying. It was one of those things where Terrence Newman, it's like, gosh, he drafted an old corner, and he played like 30 years is what he did. He was one of those guys. Yeah, good for him.
He was the, I think he was the last of the Parcells era guys to play or to retire, I think, or maybe there would have been a guy in 05, but he lasted longer than I think Romo and Witten did. Witten left, came back, and I think outlasted him. But for continuous play, it was Newman. I mean, he played till he was 40. Now I think he's coaching in Minnesota, I think it is now. But he carved out a nice.
The university or his high school?
No, Vikings. He was coaching with the Vikings.
He's coaching with
Zimmer had put him on staff. I don't know if he stayed through the changes, but he was on staff with Zimmer.
Yeah, real quick story. I taught him how to play golf. And he took like $150 from me one day, and I'm like, I didn't even know we were playing for money, bro. And like, yeah, but he and I, the first time and he's now a really good golfer, but the first time he ever played golf, and then now here he is, like he took money from me, and I paid him. I said, I'm never playing golf with you again. You know, I didn't know we were playing for money. You know, that kind of thing.
What is it? Catch a fish for a man, or give a man a fish, teach a man to fish. It was all that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that does it for us here today on the Love the Star podcast. We will talk to you guys again 2 more times this week. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.